Hello everyone, welcome to the Money Club series. I'm your host, Zah and I'm joined by my brother from another mother, Sam Jaban. How are you?
Good, man, good. How you doing?
What's been happening? You lost a bit of weight,
yeah.
I can see. What's been happening?
I've been restricting my calories.
Yeah?
It's not a fun time, to be honest.
Counting your steps?
Counting steps. So I'm trying to do it the easy way. I know you could sort of consume what you used to consume and then work harder in the gym, but I'm trying to be a bit more efficient. So I'm reducing the calories as well as the steps. But
and we've been talking about this calorie thing lately quite a bit, right? Because I've been taking note of, what I eat, and you really are surprised, when you really dig down into how much calories are in certain foods. Like,
it's crazy.
Like a small block of chocolate, for example, I think 4 squares of Cadbury works out to be, I think, like 150 or 200 calories or something like that. It's massive. And that does not fill you up at all, right? And you can compare it to, say, a couple of bananas, for example, and you get so much more bang for buck, right?
Once you start analyze, like if you record it for yourself, that's what I found. I've been doing it for maybe 6 months now, off and on a bit. Got married, all that stuff, stuffed things up a bit. But
got comfortable quick.
Well, yeah, my wife's a good cook, so it was hard
She's
to
a mad cook.
Hard to say no to food. But it's sort of in the places you don't expect it. So when you eat chicken, you're like, okay, there's going to be some calories in that. But man, sometimes the sauce on the fucking chicken is got more calories.
Well, you were telling me about the garlic sauce, your Lebo garlic sauce, right? Like a teaspoon of that's like 100 calories or some shit.
Yeah.
That is massive.
Because it's all olive oil. So once, it's really good. If anyone's like looking to improve their body, physique, whatever, if you're already going to the gym, you're probably up on that. But if you're not a gym goer or anything like that, just really look at your calories and you'll be surprised. Half the stuff you eat is bad. Like,
and you know what it reminds me of, Sam? It reminds me of doing a budget for your financial health, right? Like you don't realize how much is going out. And we did it, my wife and I did it, it would have been about 6 or 7 years ago. A mentor of mine said to me, Zah, like, calculate like what your expenses are on a weekly basis and all of that sort of thing. And I remember looking at him going, I don't need to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine.
I know my shit.
Yeah. And then we actually did it because he said to me, he goes, I'm not talking to you again until you do it. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And it was amazing to see how much was going out, which I just didn't realize. Like, you're talking subscriptions and all of that sort of thing. And then once you fine tune it, because you know where you're at, you can put away so much more money. And it's the same with dieting, right? Like, if you count your calories or track it anyway, you've got calories you can use, right? Because you're looking for bang for buck, and do you really need those? Exactly, right? Yeah. So I think it's a great thing, thinking like an accountant when it comes to your health and fitness, and it shows, Sam.
Thanks,
it shows. You've dropped about 10 kegs, haven't you?
10, yeah, about 10, I think. I'm about 92 now.
My son's not even 10 kilos and he's heavy, right? So I'm thinking, if you were walking around with my son plus, 2 or 3 kilos, that's a lot of weight. Well done.
Thanks, man.
Well done. What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about starting at the bottom.
Okay, so what we wanted to talk about is more so about the hardships that we've gone through, the hard things that we've had to do to get here. And the reason why this topic has come about is you recently just celebrated, Ahmed's birthday. He's 40 years old, which, Ahmed and I, for our listeners that don't know, are best friends from school. And he's turning 40 first, and then I'm turning 40 at the end of the year. And we're starting to reminisce on the last, say, 15 to 20 years of our working lives since we've, left school. And there's a big debate on at the moment, baby boomers versus millennials versus Gen Zs, right? Where, a lot of people are complaining about house prices, complaining about cost of living. But then the baby boomers, for example, are saying, look, millennials and Gen Zs, all they care about is traveling and, eating avocado on toast.
Fancy life.
Yeah, that sort of thing, which, and we're seeing it as well, like, because a lot of our clients are, say mid-20s to 30s, and they're feeling the pinch, right? And but we are also seeing that a lot of them aren't really doing the things that you should be doing at the bottom. So I guess what we wanted to share today is some of the things you and I had to go through very early on in our, I guess, working career, to give examples of what you actually really got to do at the bottom and how long it actually lasts, because it does go for a while and it feels like it goes forever. Like I feel like, now I'm approaching 40. I probably really started to enjoy my life at around 35, right? So it was a good 15 years of, working, trying to figure it out, sacrificing, all of those sort of things. So let's go through it.
Yep.
My first one, I want to talk about my parents, right? So my parents came here from Malaysia. Yep. My mum actually got a scholarship to study in Tasmania. So she didn't have to pay HECS or anything like that. She was very fortunate and
She was smart.
Smart woman.
Scholarships
very
are
smart
hard
woman
to get.
So she did civil engineering, and she still does that today as a job. And my parents and my dad became a slaughterman, right, in an abattoir. Now they had my brother down in Hobart, who's 6 years older than me. Then we moved up to Newcastle, and I was born in an apartment. We used to call them flats, right? Those old school, red brick apartments. And it was just a rental. And I was born in a suburb called Waratah. So my parents came here basically with nothing, and they worked very, very hard. My mum studied hard. My dad worked very hard. My dad did a lot of stuff around the home because they didn't have the help. And I was born in an apartment. I was the second child too. Over time, we grew out of that apartment and went out to a suburb called Medford, which is not far from Newcastle, about halfway between Newcastle and Maitland. And we rented a house there, and everything just blossomed from there. But the point I'm trying to make is that my parents had 2 children in an apartment. So it's a lot of people are complaining about affordability and all of that sort of thing, and they're not going to be able to buy a house and all,
we're too soft.
Yeah, we are. If you look back on the generation
what our
before
parents
us,
did,
what our parents did, and this is why I wanted to start off with our parents, because the baby boomers sort of have a point, right? Because we're becoming too spoilt with what we want in life. And it's a really good example of you can turn out all right if you start from the bottom, right? And sacrifice. And my parents sacrificed, they were both on fixed incomes. They, we ate all our food on our plate. They got the cheaper cuts of meat, never went on holidays. They drove shit cars. They really sacrificed and then slowly built up, and then eventually, they bought the block of land in the suburb they wanted to live in, and which is not far from your parents, and they built their home, right? And they're living great now, but they had to make a lot of sacrifices in the beginning, and your parents would have been the same.
The story is very similar, to be honest. But just quickly, nowadays people, what you were saying is, I like what Gary Vaynerchuk says. People don't want to eat dirt these days. Everyone wants the caviar and stuff. No one wants to go through the problems or those harder times, which you sort of, if you don't have to, you probably, if you can avoid them, do it. But a lot of us can't, but you pretend to with credit and all this kind of stuff, and you try and jump the queue of hard work and all that kind of thing. But interesting point. But my parents pretty much mirrored a similar story as your family. My dad came here as a teen from the Middle East. He was one of 6 or 7 kids. They settled in Marrickville. Back then, guess how much you could buy a house in Marrickville?
How much?
35 grand.
Wow.
That was the 70s.
Wow.
So they got a mortgage.
You and I should have bought 10 of them back then.
My dad was like, we should have bought the whole street. But they had a mortgage. So they got like a 25 grand mortgage. So obviously wages weren't that big back then either.
It was tough for them.
It was tough.
Yeah.
And my dad had to contribute to the mortgage, all this kind of stuff, being the eldest son. So he was one of 6 or 7 siblings. My mum was the same. So my mum is one of 6 or 7 siblings. I can't remember either side. There's always heaps of uncles and aunties.
And it's the same with my parents.
Same,
as well.
mate. Like bigger families.
Bigger families.
And they sort of grew up in smaller households. So a lot of the time people didn't have bedrooms. And when we were growing up, I was one of 4 siblings.
Well, you didn't even have a bedroom.
I didn't have a bedroom. So my whole life, pretty much up until I think when Ahmed left the house, because Ahmed, how old? He's 4 or 5 years older than me. Is that right? 4 years? 4 years.
4 years.
So once I think he left, I was able to get a bedroom because the family shuffled around. So growing up, I didn't have a bedroom. So, and I found that quite normal because I think at that time Ahmed didn't have part of like space to himself either. So our family life at home, we didn't have like bedrooms and all that kind of stuff, but we had a lot of love. So for what we didn't have in sort of wealth terms or financial stuff, we had a really good upbringing, very close and loving family. And yeah, that allowed me to, I feel, sort of starting in that way, I feel a less entitled person. I never had a bedroom. I never had my privacy.
Well, you'd be super grateful for the apartment you've got now, right? Yeah. Like you've now got this apartment, looks over the water and space and the park and everything like that. And it's a beautiful space. And like for you, you'd be so grateful.
I feel like a king now. Man.
Yeah.
Like just it's rented, so I don't even care about owning it. But I got this mad space, nice tiles, everything is nice. It's mine to an extent, but it's my space because I never had a space growing up. So it gave me a good sort of mentality about. Just being humble. Yeah, I didn't have the space. Now I have a space. I take pride in that space, and
I'm the same. Like when I moved to Sydney, I lived in 2 apartment blocks with those really old red brick ones. They were in good locations, but they were just shit, right? And I was living with other roommates, and it was a headache. And then I got together with Jade, who's now my wife. We moved into our first apartment. On Dank Street, Waterloo, and it was our first Meriton apartment. It was only about 3 or 4 years old, and when we moved there, it was obviously very exciting because it was our first place together, but it was like brand new. So we felt like we were in a 5-star hotel, and it was just amazing, right? Good, and I remember that feeling. I'd come home. That lasted about 6 to 12 months. I was still feeling like a king, you know what I mean? And I'm so glad I went through all of that hardship of, living on people's couches and all of that sort of thing, staying at mates' places and living in those, older apartment blocks because I really, really appreciate it. And these are the sort of things you have to go through. Like
it's like a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage. Because if you don't go through them, you're not going to enjoy that space you get eventually. And then if you don't enjoy it, you're going to get depressed.
It's like what our mate Andrew Tate says, right? He says, if you were born into wealth, and obviously you become wealthy when you grow up, it's not as special as if you've become wealthy from being a brokey, right? Because you don't get to appreciate the position you're in now. Like I'm grateful every day for the position I'm in, and sometimes we dwell on certain problems, and really, like a friend said to me the other day, he goes, Zah, like 10 years ago, you would have wished and dreamt for the problems you have today. And he's right.
And what that process of going from, say, not much to what you have now, it means you can do it again, which is something you've talked about before. Because you've done it and got to a point, you know how to do it again if anything fucks up in the future. So other people can't.
Set. Yeah. It's a skill set, right? And that, I think, is the most important thing. If you've got the skill set to pick yourself back up again, and well, not only just pick yourself back up, but be okay with taking a step back and not going to the fancy restaurant, taking a step back and not living in don't get too of a big home, right? Because you can sacrifice, you've learnt how to do it. But if you've been born into wealth and you've been born into privilege, it's going to obviously be a lot harder for you because you just don't know any different.
I think it'll be I think our life paths and starting where we did allows for a lot more satisfaction, which in turn is happiness. So I wouldn't change it for a thing.
No, we love it.
Love my history. All right, next one.
So
I went to my one. So
you went. Okay, so
your next one.
Jobs, right? We've all had our fair share of shitty jobs. I started out as a dishwasher at my local pizza place.
I used to order pizza there.
Yeah, you know what's funny, Sam? That pizza place is, obviously it's part of a neighbourhood shopping centre, and about 3 or 4 years ago I was considering buying it. At the time.
It's still there too.
And it's funny because I was going through the leases, right, when we were looking at buying the place, and the guy who holds the lease for the pizza shop is actually the same guy I worked for 25 years ago.
Wow.
So I think I was like 14, 15 years old when I started working there. But look, you know, I did that, and then when I left school, my dad made me go and work on a construction site as a labourer, and I did that for 6 to 12 months, or actually longer. And I was saying this to a family who had 4 boys the other night. I was saying, and they're in high school at the moment. I said the best thing that you can do is go and work on a construction site as a labourer for 6 to 12 months, because you'll always look back at that time and go, wow, nothing is as bad as working on that site, because it's hard work. I did it from the age of 17 all the way to, I think it was like 20 years old. And look, for me, it was good money, right? I think at the time I was earning $25 an hour. That was more money than I had ever made in my whole entire lifetime. So I actually loved the money, but it was hard work. I look back on that time now and just think, wow, like I'm glad I did it, but I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore. Yeah,
it's sort of like a motivator. Like, I'm going to pursue something else and do well, because I don't want to go back to that. You know?
Yeah.
So I did 2 days work with my mate's uncle back in the day. I remember doing a job in Linfield. They were doing a reno on a massive 2-story house. I lasted 2 days doing it, man.
2 days.
I didn't know. I didn't know the lingo, man.
Yeah.
They were like, I can't remember. This is probably going to sound very bad, but do you know what a 2x4 is? I'm not in building.
Timber, yeah.
What's a 2x4? What is it? Like, he goes, go get the 2x4 down there, and there's timber everywhere, man. I came back with the wrong thing, man. I got smashed because he's Greek. He goes,
but you just got to ask the question.
I was probably too embarrassed, because the first day, I'm not a builder. I didn't do wood tech at school. I had no idea. So after that day, I was like, and then the next day, I think I fucked up the wheelbarrow. I was like, nah, it's not for me.
But at least you got a taste for it, Sam.
I had a taste, but it's hard.
It's hard work. Like, I did it 5 days a week, and I was also working at night time as well. And I actually remember my first day. And then the next day afterwards, I was so sore, and everyone on site was making fun of me because they could tell, like I was like walking around, I was hobbling around. I was just sore because I wasn't used to it. And then over time, you get used to it. And I just remember packing my lunch, and I'd never be able to pack enough food because you just burn through so much calories. Plus, you're 17, 18 years old. But it was a great experience, and I think like, I've got a son now, and I'm going to push him to do that, and not so much for the money, but more so just that's what working class people have to do. And it's really great experience. And I remember people who are older than me on site saying to me, Zah, like, make sure, like, these are good guys. And they were 45, 50 years old, doing the same job as me. They go, make sure you stay in uni, or you continue on with a career, or you try and open a business, because you don't want to end up like us at 45 years old. These guys had no teeth, and they were fucking smoking cigarettes.
Apart. Their bodies are falling apart.
Yeah, and they were unfit, and mate, they were fucked, you know what I mean? And they were right. They were right in telling me that, because they were like, you don't want to be doing that forever. And it was a great motivator for me to go, all right, I'm going to make something of my life, because I don't want to go back to that point, because I've seen people who still work there, right?
It's character building, man.
Yeah.
It made you go and do bachelor management.
Yeah.
Right? And we saw each other again.
Yeah. And then look, we did a lot of other things as well, like, entrepreneurial things like buying and selling different bits and pieces. We even did that in high school, because we were just trying to make money. I think mobile phones was a big one for me. I'd travel to Sydney. I'd have contacts here where I get phones for, say, $120, and then go sell them for $150, $160, in school. And that was big money for us back then. If you could make a $50 margin, that's huge. It's actually good,
I remember back in the day, you and my brother and a few other mates, you used to do a lot of entrepreneurial stuff.
Yeah.
I remember my brother always used to come home with different stuff. He phoned, stereo system, and he'd sell his nuts and make money. And I'm like, come on, man. I loved it, but
now he sold his nuts to his wife.
I don't think they were bought, man. They were given.
All right.
My next one. All right, so I'm going to do a step before getting a job. And mine is the teen years. So I guess from starting at the bottom, this is not monetarily speaking, it's more, say, a confidence thing. Because we all go through different hardships in life. They're not always monetary or financial. But growing up, as we discussed at the start of it, I had some weight on. I'm dropping it now. I've always had a weight issue. I don't know what the hell it is. Growing up, we were a very sporty family. All my siblings are quite lean. I did the same sports as what they did. I ate the same food, but somehow I was always like 10 or 20 kilos heavier than normal. So at I think my early teens, I was probably as heavy as I am now. So about 90 kilos, but
really
2 foot short. Yeah, about
wow.
85. I was fat. You remember, man?
Yeah,
with chicken burger.
Yeah, you were.
So in my teens, overweight, that environment where you're growing up, there's a lot of social shit happening and school. It can fuck you up a bit. But
mentally, yeah, it would have affected you, you know.
So you go through a lot of character building exercises, to put it in another way, during that time. And as well, my name. So you would have had the same issue. On the coast, there wasn't many foreign named people.
No, not at all.
Or there might have been, but maybe not from where you are. There could be some other types of Asian, or a random guy from Europe or something like that with a different name.
There was never a community of the one
of the
culture.
Same people, yeah. So you sort of had to mingle with your other non-Anglo background people. So I remember going to school. No one could say my name. The teachers couldn't say my name. They'd say it wrong. So combining those two things, being the fatter kid and with a weird name, you do get a lot of
no beard.
No beard back then. So
you're fucked.
The double chin was popping out, man. That's all this does, man. It covers the double chin. But no, it forces you to go through a lot of shit early, and deal with a lot of identity type stuff and confidence. So you had to sort of keep going to school. You had to do it for 6 years, man. Even if you were fat, had a funny name, whatever it is, there's a lot of other people who had similar issues. Maybe not name or your weight, but different things. So you have to confront them daily, man. And I think over time what it does is it builds your confidence up. Even though it sounds weird, like they're smashing you or whatever, that you're not feeling good. But over time when you look back, it makes you resilient.
Some people don't get out of it though, Sam. Some people don't get out of it, and we know
they stick to the label what they were told to be.
Yeah. So, and a lot of people play the victim, and they act like they're so insecure about their position in life and all of that, and they haven't grown out of it. Like I've met guys who are well into their 40s who still harp on about their past. They hang on to it, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it really affects their growth personally later on in life. And that's why I think it's really important to work on yourself. And I was listening to a guy who I look up to quite a bit, and he was doing a podcast, and he said he was doing a Q&A actually, and someone wrote in saying, look, I've got all these negative people around me, negative family, negative friends, what do I do? Like I've got this belief system where I don't believe in myself and all of that sort of thing.
They crushed him.
And his advice was really good, because he said, you need to pour everything back into yourself now. Like the full investment needs to go into yourself. So cut off everyone. If every single person, including your wife, whatever, is negative and toxic towards you, cut them all off and dive into reading a book a week. Dive into podcasts with people that you really look up to and aspire to be like. And I did that, right? I had to do it in my early 30s. Like in my early 30s, a lot of people turned their backs on me. They were negative towards what I was trying to do. I was having problems with my family, all of that sort of thing. And I dived into, like we would spend our Sundays at the bookshop reading for 3-4 hours. Like at the bookshop, my wife and I, that's what we would do on the weekends, right? I would train every single day for 2 hours, and I would listen to the people that I would look up to. I didn't know these people, right? And it pulled me out and created the man I am today, right? And there are still people within my circle that are negative towards, I guess, what I do, right? There's people in my family, there's friends that try and constantly pull me down. But because I've invested in myself, I've been able to grow out of that. And that's the same as what you've been able to do, right, Sam? You've been able to push out of it because you've invested into yourself, you've invested into your business, you've invested into your clients, you've invested in trying to help bring value to others. And look at you now, you're unstoppable. Super proud of you, man, because Yeah, you've come from, like, I do remember you as a kid. I used to make fun of you. Like, I was one of those people.
You called me the chicken burger.
Yeah, I was one of those negative people, right? I did not help you. And this is why I'm on this mission to help you now, because I feel so bad. So you've upgraded from a chicken burger to a little
grilled chicken
cheeseburger. You know what I mean?
Funny, very funny. So what we both experienced through that process, I think you find your mental space is a lot calmer because you had to go through all that shit with the negative people, all the problems you had. What I went through with all the people in that sort of growing phase and finding out who you are, you make your space in your mind very calm. And I think that's as well
comes
as
from experience.
And going through problems. So starting at the bottom, going through all that shit, it makes you mentally tough.
And this has made you an exceptional business person as well. Like you are probably one of the calmest people that I know. Like literally, calm.
Just acting.
Like you are by my side throughout like the majority of my business dealings, right? And you've seen me fly off the handle to the point where like. I want my listeners to know that you are the calmest person in the room all the time. And I think it's because of what you've been through, right? And look, at the end of the day, what all of this character building does for you is it allows you to deal with bigger problems later on in life. And when you can deal with bigger problems, you will ultimately get paid more. So the bigger the issue, the bigger the drama, the bigger the problem, and if you can actually solve it with a calm head, you're actually going to be rewarded, because that's what the marketplace does. The more value you can bring, the bigger the problem you can solve, the more you'll get paid.
And the calmer you are internally, the more stress you can take on, which we were talking about just before.
Yeah, and look, I've become more patient and calm over the years as well. Like if you've seen me back when I was in my 20s, man, like I was actually known as the guy that was a ticking time bomb, right? And that's no good. Like you don't want to be that person. And, you know, I think from working on myself, getting through a lot of problems with family and social pressures and all and identity, you know, like you're trying to, like it was difficult for us back in the day, you know, like you said earlier, we grew up in a, you know, mainly Anglo sort of environment. There wasn't many of us around, you know, that were from migrant parents and with Arabic, you know, last names and all of that sort of thing. So it was difficult, but it has been great character building, and it's got us to this point here. And we fought through it, you know what I mean? And now we're trying to help others go through, you know, these similar hard times. And I think you need to embrace it. Like if you're going through this, you're young, if you're in school or if you're in your 20s and you're finding it really, really difficult to become accepted or feel like you're accepted or all of that sort of thing, just know that this is meant to happen to you so you can become stronger later on. So you do get to 35, 40 years old and you're like a machine, right?
Things are easier. So if you go through the harder stuff then, it's going to be easier now.
Yeah.
If you didn't go through it then and you have to do it now, it's going to be much
And
tougher.
this is what the baby boomers are saying. Go through the fucking pain.
Exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like make it hard for yourself. Like go through the periods of having to eat tuna out of a can fucking 5 days a week. Don't go to a restaurant for fucking 6 months. Like, see what it feels like and then fucking whinge about, you know, house prices, cost of living, all of that sort of thing. Don't just sit back and whinge, right? But then go, all right, I want to live this fucking opulent lifestyle.
Exactly.
Like, it's not going to work. Like, we all had to do it tough. And this is what Gen Zs and millennials actually pay out the baby boomers for. And the baby boomers are going, look, we had to sacrifice. Like, I was born in a fucking 1950s flat 2-bedroom apartment. Right? Like, I'm sure my parents didn't want to do that. They would have loved to have the big house, right? But they had no choice.
I'm sure they would have wanted to buy in Sydney too. Same with my parents. They said, we can't do it. We're going to live out there.
Yeah.
With a house that doesn't fit everyone. So.
With no bedrooms. Okay.
I think we're up to your one.
My one. Okay, so this is another big thing, and we talked about this when I first walked in today with our star producer, Lindsay, about credit card debt. And, you know, like we've all been there. We've all been in this debt. I mean, if you've come from nothing and you haven't been in credit card debt before, I think there's something wrong with you, right? Really, like so the majority of people have been, right? So I want them to know that it's normal. So I moved to Sydney with $20,000 worth of credit card debt, which was a lot of money. When you've got no money and you're trying to look for work, like you're a labourer, a part-time labourer, like that's a lot of money, right? And this is going back 15, 20 years ago. You went through the same thing, and what it did for me was, obviously you can go two ways. You can go into more bad debt, and you can, spiral out of control and potentially, just fuck your name, or you can work at getting rid of that debt. So obviously I went down the path of working at getting rid of the debt. And I remember I started earning I had like 3 jobs, right? I started earning like $1,500 a week in the hand, which was big money for me back then. But this is a bit of cash here, and like a job that paid 50 grand over here, and
so not consistent sort of stuff, or sort
it averaged at about 1,500 a week, right? But I had to do a lot of hours to get it. Anyway, I would take 500. I remember it very clearly. I'd take 500 and I'd live off the 500. Pay my rent from there. At the time I was sharing with roommates, so my rent was only like, I think $180 a week. I'd eat from there and all that sort of stuff. So that 500 is what I lived off. 1,000 went straight to the debt. So within 20 weeks, right, that debt was paid off. Now, I thought to myself, what do I do now? Because I was just, for about 6 months, I'm just like trying to smash this debt. And I thought, well, I might as well start just saving this money. And then, because I already had that habit for that 6 months. So I've turned that negative into this positive, right? And then for the next 6 months, I saved that $1,000. Then all of a sudden, I've got 25 grand.
You're banked.
Right? And then my income started to go up because I started taking on more work and I got better positions in whatever I was doing. And that habit was so strong that I continued to live off that $500 for so long.
Wow. That's discipline though. And habit and discipline.
Yeah, but
you could have spent
it was because of that debt, Sam. That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have had the motivator to go, okay, now I've got to really stick to this living off $500 a week or whatever it was. Right? And then I continued to live off that 500 even when I started earning $2,000 a week. So what happened was I continued to work, and then when I hit $70,000, I think I was working 3 or 4 jobs at the time. When I hit $70,000, bang, first house deposit.
Was that hard transitioning from the saving to the acquiring for you?
Yeah, so to let go, and this is what you went through this, and all the majority of our clients go through this, where they save up $100,000 and then they go, oh, I don't want to let go of it because it's just so precious. And I've been there, right? And I obviously tell clients, look, it's going to be all right. So you're going to earn more money. And also you're growing your money. And also, like, if you keep the money, it's going to diminish in value, right? So we need to put it into the marketplace, right? We need to deploy that capital. And that was hard for me, because and this was going back 15 years now, like, $70,000 from working 3 jobs, physical jobs as well. Like, you
value that.
Yeah, you really do. And you think, okay.
And that's everything you had up until that point in time.
And you sacrifice, right, Sam? Like, you're not going out to dinners. Like, I was just have just been recently with Jade, gotten together, and I never bought her a handbag. We never went on a holiday.
You're still in that share apartment?
Still in the share apartment.
See, you're still in the share apartment. See, people don't share apartments these days.
I didn't have a nice car.
A lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, and you work so hard and you think you deserve it. And I was like, no, I've got to get the first property.
Another quick
which
question.
I still have till this day.
Still that? Wow, yeah. Amazing. And it's done phenomenal.
Oh, it's I bought it at 340. It's worth 1.2 now.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah,
make the move. Question: was there a point? So you moved to Sydney, you had the credit card debt, 20K. Was there a point in time you can remember when you said or worked out why you had to pay down the debt, the credit card debt, or it's just?
It got to a point where it was out of control, also I settled into Sydney.
Yep.
So even though I was still sharing with mates and all of that sort of thing, there was no reason for me to go further into debt unless I was having fun. So The original, let's go back a bit. Like the original reason why I got the debt was because I needed to move out of the family home, and I needed to set myself up. Like I had to pay bond, and I needed furniture. Like when you first move out, you don't have anything, right? So I had to really set myself up, and plus I didn't have enough work when I first moved
pay
out.
for everything.
So I had to sort of live off this credit card for a little bit, but to help find my feet. And it was a big thing because, you know, we've come from nothing. My family never gave me any. I never got any inheritance or anything like that, or a leg up. Like you, my family gave me a lot of love, and you know, they had a great household, but I needed to really start from scratch, and I had nothing behind me. So I went into debt doing that, and then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm set.
I'm okay now. Yeah.
I don't need to really set myself up anymore. I can now just focus on working and getting ahead, and sort of like I didn't get into debt because I enjoyed myself. I got into debt because it was out of necessity.
Yeah, I think that's good, because that was sort of a mature way to do it, where a lot of people these days, they're in debt for no good reason like that, not to set themselves up. It's to do fun stuff, go overseas, buy handbags.
And look, I've done all of that, right? I did do all of that stuff as well. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, like I was just like a soldier and, you know, it's super disciplined. Yeah, there were times where like I probably shouldn't have spent money on things, and I did go into debt. But I woke up pretty early on it because I was like, well, I can't keep doing this because I've got to get ahead. And I knew I just needed to smash that debt. And you know what's funny, Sam? Like, my main priority was just to get rid of the debt. It wasn't really to build wealth or anything. That's what stressed me out.
But it came from that. It came from that.
But it came from that because the discipline was it started from paying down that debt and then living frugally off, you know, little bits that I had.
No, amazing, man. All right, next one. Starting at the bottom for me, the next one would be I was the first in the family to finish uni. So
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Ahmed started. He didn't finish. He did some science degree or some shit like that. But
Debbie never went to uni, did she?
Debbie didn't go to uni. I think she did TAFE and stuff. Said did TAFE as well. So I went down a path no one went through in my family. So it was a bit. It's not a massive adversity, but it was like no one could guide me. I did it myself. I found some people along the way to share the journey with, but then it's still, you're taking on debt. Back then there was HEX, so I didn't really pay for the course. I didn't have money. So I had to go into debt to pursue a path I didn't know where it would lead. So it's sort of a risk there as well. So yeah.
But you did a uni degree which you need to use, right? Like going into your line of work. Like you need to use it. We had this conversation the other day with my mum, and my mum, she actually listens to this podcast, so now I've got to be careful with what I say. But my mum and I were having this conversation about, I think I said in a podcast before that university is like a marketing scam, and I was sort of shitting on unis, right? And my mum mum comes out at dinner saying, "Oh, I heard you say that," and blah blah blah, and I'm like, "I'm sorry, mum," you know, like, but we had this conversation about, you know, where do we think uni is going to really end up? And I think it's important for people like doctors, lawyers, and
professional stuff.
My mum said, she goes, if you go to a doctor, wouldn't you want him to know that he went to uni? I'm like, of course, right?
But they Google your shit anyway, man.
Yeah, that's right. The GPs use Google now. But like, for specific industries, I think it's important, right? Yeah. Where I think accounting. I think it's one of the best degrees, even though I didn't do accounting. I actually think it's one of the best degrees if you want to do business, because knowing your numbers it's absolutely crucial, right? In any business. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can vouch for this, is that a lot of them that don't know their numbers in the beginning, 100%, most of them will fuck it up. They don't pay their taxes, they don't pay their BASs, they don't realise what's due. And the accountants that they engage aren't really there to educate them. They're just there to do tax returns.
Service, that's it.
And I did. Like, I missed out on so much because I didn't know. So I actually think it's one of the best degrees you can do.
Yeah, no, it's the language of business accounting. So really, and nearly everything is business these days. No, you're either working for a business, or starting a business, you're investing in a business. everything you do in life really is centered around money and business. So it's really it's a good degree to have. But still, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My degree is actually management, like yours. So
But you majored in accounting.
Majored in
accounting.
accounting.
So I tried to major, not major. I tried to do a few accounting subjects. It was just too hard.
Yeah.
Like
I got 51, bro. I just passed.
Wow.
I'm better now. Like I have practical 10, 15 years experience.
Well, it's better than me. I
but
cheated.
the theory
you know
was
what I mean?
bullshit. The theory is hard.
Yeah.
Like fuck, man. It goes to like Latin times, accounting with abacuses.
Oh, I did a couple of subjects and I actually failed them. And I just was like, fuck this, I'm not doing this. But like, I did marketing and all of the other subjects. But I think if I could turn back time, I would actually really focus in on that accounting because it just helps so much in business. Even if you don't use the degree, Sam, like you're not even using it now really when you think about it. But it really does help you in overall business.
I think it makes you quite a well-rounded person because a lot of financial literacy is not taught. That's sort of like balancing that out for the lack you get in high school so that you know about the world, man. Commercial world.
Well, the reason why you're not taught is because they're encouraging people to get on the rat race and be a good paying citizen and get on the treadmill, right? And do that for 30 years. So yeah, you're sort of countering that with an accounting degree, but they don't tell you that, right? And I think that's what I would tell a lot of younger guys that are going through high school and not, you know, a lot of young, like we deal with a lot of young men, right? A lot of them want to be businessmen, you know what I mean? So really, if they were going to go to uni, like that's the one.
It's the course to do. It's
like,
foundational.
I wouldn't really do marketing because it's all outdated stuff anyway. You can get it on YouTube, social media, but if you can learn numbers and the accounting behind any business, I think you'll do really well.
It's a very good skill to have. What's your one, man?
So I worked in King's Cross for a very long time. You know, we were hustling. We'd make money doing anything. And look, it was tough, you know, like we were shaking down people, like then you're reselling bits and pieces and you're creating memberships so that people will pay you to get in, and then you'd pocket the money and all of that sort of thing. And there was a lot of money to be made back then. There was a lot of opportunity, but you had to go and find it, and you had to make sure that you didn't get caught doing it as well. So, you know, I'm not advocating that anyone do anything illegal or anything like that, but it's like, it's what we had to do to get ahead. That's the whole fucking point, right? You do what you got to do to get ahead in life. And, you know, sometimes there are things that you don't want to do. But if it's going to get you ahead and it's going to put you in a better position tomorrow, then maybe you've got to consider it. Bite the bullet. And this is one thing I was saying to, we were out at a family dinner the other night. What I find with young people is that they just don't have that fire in their belly and they just don't want it bad enough. And that's the only difference between me and the person that says, oh, you know what, like I'm happy with my position in life and I'll just cruise, right? It's because the middle class here in this country is way too fucking good, right?
Too easy.
You go to another mature market like overseas, maybe Asian countries, where the middle class, there's pretty much no middle class. There's the wealthy, and then there's the poverty line. Now the thing is, the drive and the want to be in the wealth class is so big, that fire is so big in the belly because no one wants to be on the poverty line. So the choice is like, okay, well, I've got to drive towards that wealth class, right? Where here in Australia, yeah, they talk about the wealth divide getting bigger, but still there's a middle class and you can cruise and you don't have to do much to really live a good life here. So why make the effort? It's easier to do nothing, right? So this is where, like, I have this big thing where I reckon in 30 years' time, that divide's going to be so much bigger. And you're going to have no choice in 30 years' time to strive to become wealthy because you don't want to be on the poverty line. And that's what's going to happen. And this happens in all countries. And you've just got to do what you got to do to get ahead.
We're in that dangerous period because the wealth divide is there and it's growing, but the lifestyle still hasn't. There's no gap in lifestyle.
Yeah.
Which is probably why everyone's so lax about it. No one's acting.
So so I always think to myself, I don't want to go back to the poverty line and work on that construction site. Yeah. So when I'm in King's Cross, hustling on doors, shaking down people for whatever I can, and then going back and reselling it on the street, in my head, this is better than working on that fucking construction site, right? So I'm doing what I can to get ahead because I need to buy that first property. I need to then buy the second property. I need to go and start that business, right? So we did what we had to do, right? You just do what you've got to do. You don't sit there and bitch and moan and go, oh, cost of living pressures, the government should be doing more. Victim mentality. Nah, man, we're out at midnight fucking trying to make money. We're picking up $1 on the ground if we see it, right? And we're putting it in our pocket. Like, you do what you have to do. And don't whinge about it. Like, just get on with it. You know what I mean? That's the whole point.
It's going back to really when you were younger, like in the teen years, my brother and all that kind of stuff. You started young. What you guys did, you would create an opportunity. Like, what my brother's selling nuts at school. Who the fuck would buy nuts? But people started buying them.
Yeah.
Like, he just created some and he started making a little bit of money. So it's like, that's what you did in King's Cross as well. You use that same sort of idea to create opportunity and money for yourself. So but people don't have that creativity or need. It's like a need.
I think I was forced into it. I was forced into it because I had to.
You have to.
And this is where I get frustrated with people where I go, you've got when you really fucking want it and you really need it in your life and you've got that responsibility and you want to grow, you'll fucking do anything.
Do anything, yeah.
You do anything, and that's that hunger is not there. And this is why I say to people, take everything away, all the comfort, all that stuff, take it away from you so you can feel that hunger where you've got nothing in here. And that's where the magic happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go out to the marketplace and you go, okay, how can I do it? How can I make this money? How can I buy this property? Then all of a sudden, you end up in my position now at 40 years old. Like it doesn't happen overnight, but you've got to have that muscle so you can keep going. You know what I mean?
No pay slips. That's the thing that fucks you up. All right, next one. My next one would be first professional job. Okay, so starting at the bottom, this is a very, I don't know if it's even typical, but doing the degree, all right, I spent 35 grand, whatever it is to get the degree.
It's cheap?
That time, yeah.
Back then?
Yeah, I think it was on the cheaper side of degrees.
It's like triple the price now.
Yeah, oh man, it's expensive now. So back then, graduated uni, very hard to get into the market in accounting. There wasn't many jobs. I think my name played a part. I had no connections, really. The way I got into the firm I worked for initially was through a connection, through someone I knew. And it wasn't an accounting job. So I had a degree, I just spent 3-4 years studying. I didn't really have a good income because it was full-time study. I was about 22 or something. By that time, like people in trades would have had their certificate, working full-time, maybe starting businesses, all that kind of stuff. So I was behind the 8 ball, starting really at the bottom. Get this job, it's admin. The only job I could get in accounting was an admin job. I was scanning, trust deeds, super fund deeds that we set up. I was scanning them for like a year straight on about 30 grand a year. So that was my starting at the bottom. And a lot of people were too proud to take that job. And
they would be. They would be because you've come in late as well compared to a lot of the other peers that got a trade, right? And look, I used to look at it as well, because I graduated and my mum always wanted me to get a job using my degree because I was working in clubs and I guess the status wasn't there, right? So she always was like, she'd do newspaper clippings of jobs in the local paper that were available. And I remember they paid like 26 grand a year, 27 grand a year. And I used to look at it and I think, because at the time because when I was in uni, I was already making good money from working in clubs and all of that sort of thing. Obviously, wasn't looked at as a career per se, but like I would look at those newspaper clippings and go,
take a pay cut. It's a pay cut.
Wow, and you did that, right? And you went through it, and you probably did it for a number of years before you even seen a raise. But that's what's essential. You have to go through it. Like, I was cleaning nightclubs. A lot of people say, oh yeah, you're running nightclubs. But in the beginning, I was cleaning them.
You started at the bottom.
Like the fucking people would leave at 6 a.m. and I would clean like shit off a toilet bowl, right? Like I had to start and I didn't want to do that shit, but I had to because it paid $20 an hour, and it's the only work I could get. But then I upgraded to, you know, being a glassy, and then, you know, being a bartender, and then be a bar manager, and then a general manager, all of that sort of stuff, right? So, you know, like it's just really essential to go, all right, I've got to start somewhere. And like you said, because of social media now, like everybody's got too much pride. They want to start, not necessarily at the top, but they want this cushy job that's paying well. It's not going to happen.
They want respect where they haven't done anything for the respect.
And it's not going to happen. And Sam, like people like us who now are employers, we look down on people that expect that. We actually look up to people who are willing to get on their hands and fucking knees and get, you know, just put the fucking work in. Right, because that's what we had to do.
Contribute before you get.
We could go on for ages. I mean, we've got heaps more points, but I think we've got to wrap this up because we've got to get going.
No,
but look, I think we do another podcast on this because there's so many stories for where you and I like have gone through separately, right? Things where we've had to really start from the bottom, and it's a really good example for our listeners, especially our younger listeners, to go, and kids who are in school still, to think like, look, you've got a long road ahead of you. Like what Gary Vaynerchuk says, you know, like eat shit for 10 years. Because like I did it for 10, 15 years. And, you know, now I'm rewarded for it. And I think back, if I could do anything differently, I'd actually eat more shit. I would do the harder things because I would be so much stronger now.
You'd be further ahead today.
Yeah.
And everything, another takeaway is everything, not everything is permanent. So your situation will change. You're going through hard shit now, but it'll get better.
Force yourself.
Stick it out.
Thanks, Sam. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We will catch you next time. See ya.
See you.